Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome everybody. I'm sure that we'll have other people joining us. We've had a lot of interest, which has been great. So it's lovely to see so many of you here today. And I know that some people will join us as we go along. So we are recording this in case we're able to share it afterwards with people where life has happened and things have got in the way. So delighted to be able to speak to you about our therapeutic fostering assessment today. So my name's Sarah Naish, and this is my partner in crime, Sarah Penner. So we just want to explain a little bit about why we actually devised the TFA before we go into our introductions. So the reason why we did the TFA was because that we found there was a lot of difficulties around assessment in general. So for example, we would have applicants who were not properly prepared. Panel often struggled with correlating the information, and social workers and managers and administrators really seemed to struggle with the disjointed training and it not being related to the process, and then having to do training standards development, etc. afterwards. So we felt there was a lot of things that could all be brought together. But the most important thing for me as a therapeutic parenting person was the lack of proper preparation that happens during the assessment process. And that's because there's an imbalance. You might be wondering why there's a weird picture on the screen of somebody with a pot of paint. Well, in the latest book I've just written, not out yet, I've got this analogy where it felt to me like we were giving people a pot of paint and teaching them how to paint. This is how you paint the wall, this is how you do the undercoat. That's what the training and assessment process is like. And speaking as a former social worker as well, I would always want there to be a good outcome. I needed families for children. We wanted to have that positivity. But it's felt more and more like we're giving people the pot of paint, we're telling them how to paint the wall. And then unfortunately, when the child moves in, when they realise the extent of the task that they have, they find themselves ill prepared. What happens then is a lot of blame and judgment. As social workers, we can feel let down. We can feel like maybe we didn't assess properly. Maybe that's right. We can feel like, what have we missed? But more importantly, the foster parent, and I do refer to, you may say foster care, as I say therapeutic foster parent, they feel like, well, I knew how to paint a wall. I knew about this, but I didn't know about the foundations. So what we see is higher levels of foster parents resigning, giving up, and of course, more importantly and more devastatingly, children moving when that is not necessary to happen. So with the TFA, that's what we wanted to sort out, really. So the reason why we have a slight clue is I'm the CEO of the Centre of Excellence in Child Trauma, and that encompasses National Association of Therapeutic Parents, Inspire Training, and all our publications. I have owned and ran, and I'm still involved in running OFSTED Outstanding Therapeutic IFAs. I think that first-hand experience is really important because I understand the challenges of that. We led the first ever research into compassion fatigue in foster care. So we identified the problems that there were in fostering, and we paid for, instigated and led the research with Bristol University into why foster parents become so tired, so disengaged, and how we can keep them more engaged with children. And that forms quite a lot of our training, and it really underpins, you'll see as we go through today, it really underpins the structure of the therapeutic fostering assessment. Many of you will be familiar with my books. The best known one is The A to Z of Therapeutic Parenting. The relevance to that for this is that I'm known for my no nonsense, no frills approach. I like practical things that work, and that's what the TFA is based in. I'm also a former agency decision maker, panel chair, and supervising social worker, and I think that's and registered manager. So that's important for the fact that we know what we're doing. And I've also fostered. I've been assessed myself 3 times, and I have done assessments too. And I'm a doctor of 5 children, all now happily adults. So Sarah, over to you.
Hello everyone. So I am panel chair for 2 independent fostering agencies who have their therapeutic ethos. I'm also head of school at Inspire Training for the Therapeutic Parenting Studies, where we have a range of courses from level 2 to level 3, which are accredited with CASH and NCFE. I'm also a director of Inspire Training along with Sarah. And I'm a director of the Haven Parenting and Wellbeing Centre, which predominantly supports families who are in crisis point or who need that care to support them through family difficulties. And also, I worked in an outstanding therapeutic IFA as the head of training and QA. So I have done the TSD. That was my main role, to support foster parents through that process.
Thanks, Sarah. So the essential components then of the TFA, and the reason we're doing this short presentation is because hopefully it will answer some of your questions, and we'll then narrow down the questions that we get to later on. I know you've had the information pack, but some of you might have only had a chance to glance through it. I know how busy your lives are. So the essential components are, number 1, right in the middle there, preparation for the fostering task. It is about making sure that therapeutic foster parents 100% understand what they're getting into, what the behaviours are they're going to see, what they can do about it, and real understanding about that as well. That's absolutely fundamental to improve the outcomes for our children and to help our foster parents feel successful. You know, it's really important. We've woven in within the TFA a thorough grounding in therapeutic parenting training, which gives them a nice level 2 award in therapeutic fostering. So Sarah will talk a bit more about that. So Sarah's done a lot of that work, and I've been doing the TFA. That's how we've kind of divided it up. I've written a comprehensive assessor's guide, which has been piloted now and tried out by assessors, and it literally is starting at table 1 and what you're looking for and how you fill it in. So I think that's always really handy to have, so that assessors can look at what they should be doing and what should be going where. But we've left a lot of space for them to use their own initiative, and I think that's really important as well. We've streamlined the whole process, so we've taken everything that was a problem and put it into one streamlined process. So as I say, we've incorporated training, we've incorporated TSD and AWIF, and we've tried to make sure that all the administration that happens with an assessment just happens naturally, with checklists incorporated as well. So everything from the time the applicant actually applies right through to after panel, feedback, ADM decision is all on one document. It's easy to complete, over 80% virtually. Now, obviously, the assessor needs to physically visit the home at least twice, because that's really important, and it just happens organically anyway. But we have actually set up the document so that you can complete it on Zoom on this. So you'd have the document up like this. There's nothing in the TFA that the applicant can't see, obviously. So it lends itself very, very well to being able to be completed with the assessor and the applicant together via Zoom. So that cuts down a lot of travelling, and it also means that you can assess foster parents a bit further afield that perhaps you might not normally be assessing. We have reduced the risk of going into compassion fatigue and experience compassion fatigue, because we have inbuilt into the process the identification of effective support. So we've done away with the old style like eco maps and things like that, where we look at the ideal world, like what the support system is like now, and instead we've looked at what does the support system need to look like. We all know that often, you know, I know with my own eco map, those people were nowhere to be seen within 2 years. So what the TFA does is it identifies and puts in place the people who are going to be there for the long haul and be real support to the foster parent in their journey, and they're almost part of the assessment. Obviously, importantly, it complies with regulations, And I've had a lot of help and support with that, with various registered managers, operations managers and RIs from English and Welsh agencies and ADMs and panel chairs as well. So how is the TFA different? First of all, when we are doing the TFA, it speaks directly to the applicants. It doesn't speak to the assessor, it doesn't speak to panel, it talks to the applicant. So the tone is about you, how do you feel? What, would you like to explain about this? So it means that the applicant's able to write their own story, record their own story, or whatever they want to do. So we've found that Sarah might want to say a bit about this, it gives panel a real life essence of the family through modern media. So you've had people come to panel, haven't you, Sarah, where they've recorded stuff?
Yes, yeah. And it gives us a snapshot of what those foster parents are like and what their family situation is like, and their kind of incentive to go into fostering. It makes it more easy to see that perspective rather than having just the written report.
The written word,
so,
yeah.
Panel members' feedback that we've had is that it's an easy read because it is, it's all there. It does go through the regulations, obviously, but it's in a natural way that the foster parents are obviously comfortable to write that. So you get a lot more out of it.
And I think it just brings people to life, because we've had people, they've recorded it on a file, a speaking file, which is obviously uploaded. And then, I've sat and as a panel member, I've sat and listened to somebody talking about their story and saying their story. Some people have done little videos. Some people have just done a little Zoom where they've just literally recorded it and they've spoken to it and recorded that file and then sent that off. So you've got a much more real life essence of the family. And it also cuts down on some of the work for the assessor, because you can ask the applicant to do the recording or write about or talk about their life story or their highlights. We call it life highlights. And then, of course, the assessor goes back in, having read that, and picks out what they need to. We've taken out and avoid completely jargon, duplication, and unnecessary focus. And what I mean by unnecessary focus is that we've all become risk averse. We've all gone down the road, I think, over the last few years of assessing things that are not in the regulations, that people believe are in the regulations, but they're not. And there's been a very high level of focus on things like health and safety, ponds in the garden. I had something recently where somebody was fixated on the shed in the allotment that the child would never visit. And I felt what was being missed here is like, well, okay, we know the shed in the allotment's safe, that the child's never going to. However, do these parents understand trauma? Can they look after the child? Can they meet their needs? Are they going to freak out when the child does something that they are not understanding? So we've moved the focus right back to that. We present the essential information at the beginning in a concise manner, because what I always felt with different assessments was I was always going through trying to find out, well, hang on, why did they say, and where did that come from? The main thing that panel members told us when we did our focus group, panel members wanted to know up front was, why do these people want to foster? What is their expectation? What is their motivation? So that's all right at the beginning. It also means that you can screen people out very quickly as well, because you will spot people if the expectations are all completely unrealistic. Although yes, some training can address that, if we can't shift that, then they're probably not going to be suitable to foster. We help applicants, we enable them with no prior knowledge of fostering to fully understand the task. So the great thing about the TFA is the training that's associated with it, you can pitch it at different levels. So it works well for people who are coming in that have never fostered, have no idea. We start them off with a nice little easy 10-minute video, which just gives them a bit of an overview. But if you've got people coming into you that have fostered before, are very experienced, they can simply pitch the training a little bit higher. And we have found that everyone's happy, would you say, Sarah, with the levels of training, whether they're quite experienced or quite new?
Yeah. And it's, with those foster parents who have had experience, some of them like that it's a refresher as well. So they're learning more or getting more out of the training, because they can transfer their experiences and look at it in a deeper level.
And I think the important thing there is I've noticed that a lot of the people that have signed up for these information days are therapeutic fostering agencies. They're people that we worked with in the past and done some training with. I think the difficulty is that when you are working in that way and you know about therapeutic parenting and you know about the differences it makes, sometimes you get people coming in and saying, yes, I've been fostering for years, I know all about therapeutic parenting, but actually, you know, although they can talk the talk, they can't walk the walk. And I think what the TFA does is it really teases that out. And that's why we don't say to anybody, oh, well, you've been fostering for years, therefore you don't need to worry about watching this video and talking about it. I think it really makes sure that we are properly giving them the grounding so that we know we're starting off on the same page. We identify and activate a realistic support network. So we're looking at who what we call empathic listeners are going to be, who are the people are not going to run away, what training we can put in alongside that, which we can invite people to, and inspire, provide that alongside, so they can easily access some of the video-based stuff that supporters might want to watch, which means that when you've got a point where the foster parent really does need a little break and wants to go out for the evening, whatever, they're not going to be sabotaged by somebody looking after the child and then saying, oh, well, they did this and I didn't think they behaved that way. So it takes all those stresses away as well. It's formatted in such a way to allow assessors to use their own initiative and expand wherever they need to expand. Every assessment is different. And we do believe that most assessors will be looking at something and something might not feel right and they might want to dig a bit deeper. So we've just got expandable boxes where they can ask those questions and go a little bit deeper where issues arise. Best bit of all, I think, is that if they are going through this process and going through the joined up training alongside, it completely removes the need for them to complete the training standards development or the All Wales framework if you're in Wales. We're working at the moment on the Scottish one, so that will be in about 3 months' time. Sarah will talk a bit more about that when we're talking about the level 2. So the benefits that we've been told about now, it's been fed back to us. Applicants are much better prepared. Do you want to just say about that in your panel chair head?
Yes, so I ask for feedback every time a foster parent comes to panel on the process, because we had pilot agencies who were trialling this for us. So it allowed us to make any tweaks that we needed to. And most of the foster parents that come back were either very experienced, or they may have been new to fostering. And the feedback we got from that was that it had prepared them for their fostering journey. And even foster parents who had been very experienced in other agencies have said, this is great, this is a refresher, this is what I needed when I first started. So alongside the TFA and the training that going hand in hand, it meant that they were really able to look at their role as a foster parent and what that might entail in the future.
And I think one of the real benefits for that we see, so obviously we've had the advantage of seeing people come through the TFA, go to panel, and then have their first children coming in. And our feedback there from therapists and professionals involved with the family are how much more able they've been to, understand those behaviours. They might have been matched with a child that perhaps normally you wouldn't have matched them with their first child, because they've just got that understanding that's there already. So, and the children stay, obviously. There's an improved trust between the fostering families and the staff team. And I think that comes about because the TFA is a very open process. And we do work very hard to make sure that within that foster parents are truly prepared and understand there's nothing hidden, there is nothing held back. So my belief as a therapeutic parent, a former foster parent, is if people give me the information, if they tell me what's going to be difficult, I can prepare for that and I can sort it out. The worst thing that happens, and the complaint that we get over and over again from new foster parents and even the more experienced ones, was I did not know. I did not know it was going to be like this. And in fact, the name of our research was called "No One Told Us It Would Be Like This." So we don't want that. We want there to be trust. What you would call placement disruption, what we call family breakdown, or children leaving unexpectedly, is significantly reduced. And that's because obviously the foster family start off at a high level. They've got improved knowledge and improved understanding, and they've got that support structure in place already. The TFA is quicker to complete and it's more inclusive. And by more inclusive, I mean it includes the family, the fostering family, the children, the adult children, the extended family, the support structure. So everyone understands what's going on with the family. It's quicker to complete because A, there's no duplication, and it's just a very logical process. So most assessors tell us that they take between 6 to 8 weeks to complete it, depending on complexity and the number of visits. But mostly the assessor feedback has been exceptionally positive. And although we're tending to pay people the same rate, the hourly input is not as high as usual, depending on complexity. We've incorporated all the checklists within the TFA. I know agencies like to have their own as well, but all the checklists are there for the stuff that has to be done according to regulations. So your assessor and administrator can work very closely together. The applicants can see on the TFA what's required on the checklist, and you just go through it as you walk through the TFA and just tick things off. All training needs can be met through simple enrolment onto the level 2, and that removes the need for training weekends and additional time. So for example, you might be in a situation, I know I used to do this in my agency, where we'd have applicants in, we'd wait till we had 5 or 6 in together, and then a social worker or somebody would give up a couple of weekends and they would do the training at the weekends, and and they'd probably have to be writing that training or using a program that maybe worked and maybe didn't for the agency. So the way that we've done this is that nearly all of the training can be done in the level 2 online. The only bit that you would need to add in is the stuff relevant to your particular agency or local authority. So for example, in the role of the professional foster parent, which Sarah will talk about in a moment, we do cover about safeguarding and why we need a safer caring plan, but then there's a space there for you to perhaps have a Zoom call or a nice meeting with your foster parents. You can watch the videos together, and then you can give them the links to your own stuff and the documents, your own safeguarding. You'll have your own procedures around reporting. So we've left that very general. We've talked about why you need to do recording, reporting, but obviously there's a space there because everyone has a different system. There's a significant time reduction that has been reported to us for administrators, assessors and supervisors and social workers because the training is streamlined. And in fact, one agency has said to us that they've actually made one of their administration posts part-time because it saved so much time for them. So because the training is streamlined, it has taken a lot of pressure off everybody because that's all done by Inspire, which Sarah will talk about in a moment. So the sections of the TFA, which I will bring up on the screen in a little while. So we have essential information right at the beginning. That includes expectations and motivation. And then we've got Who I Am, where they talk about their story and what made them who they are. We then have relationships, parenting and lifestyle, where we look at the children in the family, if there are any, and the relationships that have happened. We then spend quite a lot of time thinking about the child who might come in, matching considerations. We're sort of double checking here about expectations around behaviour and explaining about that. Then at the section 5, the assessor does their report and recommendation. We've got some very nice little highlighted boxes after every section that the assessor summarises, and they can just use that, which is great. It's all in different colours, which you'll see in a moment. Section 6 is all the checks, references and records that you want to add in. 7, panel agency decision maker. So that records the decision that's made at panel, the reasons for the recommendation, and also the agency decision maker recommendation. About this assessment just has all contacts points, who goes where and how long the assessment took to do, that kind of thing. And then we've got an addendum, and we know that a lot of agencies want to add on all sorts of things to that. But at the moment, what we have in it is the beginning of a personal development plan because it's been started. We have the safer caring plan, and we've got an overview of training that's completed during the assessment. So Sarah's just going to talk you through a little bit now about how the incorporated training works.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. So we've got here, so the therapeutic fostering qualification has 6 units, and we require prospective foster parents to do units 1, 2, and unit 6 before panel. So that really helps to embed their understanding of developmental trauma. We have unit 2, which is so SAFE stands for secure attachments founded on empathy, and that's our therapeutic parenting approach. It's a level 2, so it's aimed at a GCSE level, which is really helpful for parents to get a foundation knowledge of the basic strategies for therapeutic parenting. And then unit 6 is the role of the professional therapeutic foster parent. So that goes into the legislation, the recordings and why it's important, safer caring, safeguarding, and also working as a team. So with those 3, they have workbooks at the back, and there are some questions that they need to answer. Some of them are throughout the module, some of them are at the end, and then they are all mapped into either the TSC or the AWIF, depending on where the foster parents are in the country, either England or Wales at the moment. And it's all mapped in, so as a supervising social worker or the assessor who's assessing those TSDs and AWIFs at the end, it's all mapped in, and we've actually done the workbook as well. So when they come to 6 months, we recommend after they've been approved, when you've got daily logs that have evidence in as well, all you have to do as a supervising social worker is sign it off, and you may want to fill in the overall comments at the back. So it's evidenced throughout all of the units, but to start off with, we recommend them to do unit 1, 2, and 6.
Do you want to just say a little bit about the feedback from the learners that the applicants have done? Because I know that as a social worker, when I look at this, think, oh no, people will never do it, they'll never be able to do it. Do you want to just say about how easy it is and what applicants and learners have said?
Yeah. So we've had, when we say, I mean, it says there usually over the course of 1 year. To be honest, we've had foster parents who've done it in 4 days. Yeah. And once they start, it's all online, so they can just go online and do it. If they're a couple, they can do it together as long as they submit 2 pieces of work, and then they both get the certificates from cash at the end. But it's something that we've had feedback saying it's, once they've started, they don't really want to stop because they're learning so much. And those experienced foster parents are able to acknowledge what they have been doing in the past and build on it. So it's not something new, but it's something that a lot of them say, oh, I was doing this already, but it has a name. From panel chair perspective, you can see that since we've started doing this, foster parents who've come through and had some training, they were able to tell us a bit about PACE, what they might do in a certain situation. The foster parents who've had through on this pilot are able to say in a lot more detail and also relate it to experiences they've had. So they're making those links, and it's visible to see. And they enjoy it. That's the kind of feeling that we get from them. The feedback is that it is quite an enjoyable.
Well, it's nice, isn't it, to have a qualification which actually shows what you know. I mean, and I think that's something that a lot of really good professional foster parents have struggled with, and adopters as well. So as Sarah's mentioned, the level 2 is incorporated. And I'm sure that some of you might be a little bit concerned about, well, how much work is this for us? So Sarah's just going to quickly run through the process, what you'd actually have to do. How much work is there for you?
Yes, so there is very little for you. So once the TFA has started, an administrator from your agency just sends the foster parent's email address to us. They will be allocated a tutor who will help them through the whole process. So any questions, the tutor will do all their marking, and they're usually at the end of the phone 5 days a week, and sometimes on weekends, depending on where the tutors work, because we realise that, you know, foster parents might want to sit down on a Saturday night at 10 o'clock and do their work, and they might need someone there. So the tutors can work quite flexibly within that. So we then communicate directly with your administrator and monitor the situation, so with their progress. Usually after the first unit, the agency administrator will be sent an email from the tutor to say this is how far they've got, they've passed it. We can give feedback if agencies require. At the end of each unit, they do have a feedback form, so we can send that to you to see specifically how they've got on. And then when it's time to go to panel, we will help them get through those 3 units. A lot of the tutors will know when their panel date is, so then we will aim to work towards that. But like I said previously, it doesn't, although we say they've got up until a year, that's to basically take the pressure off, but a lot of them can do it in a couple of days if they've got a lot of concentration time. If they haven't and they're dipping in and out, it could be a couple of weeks or, you know, a couple of months. So it's quite easy for them to log on and do a bit and then send it to their tutor and then come back to it. And
also, if they're not very IT literate or they struggle with that, we're really used to that, and we've got really brilliant patient assessors who will literally be on the phone with them and say, right, click here to, and once they're in, I mean, it's very, very easy to, you know, it just kind of does itself, and everyone has managed that. We haven't had anyone that hasn't managed it. So yeah. So yes, and obviously, as Sarah mentioned, you know, the great thing is they get a certificate from Cash, and also it means that because the workbook is all mapped to TSD, you don't need to do that anymore. I mean, what a headache that used to be for us in fostering. And of course, a lot of the foster parents used to find it irrelevant, and that was the difficulty. So Ofsted come in and they want to make sure everyone's done it, but you know, your foster parents, it's like dragging a brick up a hill, because they, you know, not very motivated. But what we're finding here is people are very motivated to do this once they start it. Finally then, we are, the reason we're using the TFA, so when we use TFA, we can stop doing risk assessments on goldfish. Trust me, I've seen them. I have seen risk assessments on goldfish within assessments, and hamsters and rabbits and sheds and allotments, and start concentrating on the needs of traumatized children. That is where we have shifted the focus to, or back to. I think it's so important that we start really recognizing the impact of trauma, understanding trauma, why it happens, what it looks like, and what we do. And we give our foster parents some bricks to start building the foundations. It upskills the applicants, and it also upskills established therapeutic foster parents and staff. So you may, it's a really nice little qualification, by the way, the level 2. If you've got people who are already fostering and you know, would like to do a bit more training, they can just log on and you can enroll them into the level 2, and they can just do that. We've had a lot of people do that as well, and staff and administrators that just want that grounding. It ensures that the applicants have the correct motivation, expectations and skill levels before they come to panel. So there's quite a lot of checks in there, and some very, you know, I think some very clever ways of making sure that we're doing as much as we can to give children the best opportunity and applicants the right levels of support. We do find that we keep therapeutic foster parents reduce resignations. In our agencies that I work with that are using the TFA, and of course we've used something similar for a number of years. I mean, our rate of foster parents leaving, it tends to be organic, like as they retire. I think we've had one foster family that have resigned in the last few years because they haven't felt that things have gone well for them. Otherwise, it's always around health issues. Very, very low because they're feeling job satisfaction, they're feeling supported, and they're feeling like they're doing a good job, and they tend to keep the children a long time. If that's in the care plan for the child, you know, they're very well supported. The training continues alongside some of our other strategies, and children stay put. We have introduced and incorporated a robust support system that is critical for keeping your foster parents out of compassion fatigue. That is the main reason why you have what you would call placement breakdown, is compassion fatigue, and it saves time. So we're all very busy, foster parents are busy, administrators are busy, social workers are busy, but this definitely saves you a lot of time. So we all want to do that. So next steps then, I will bring up the document in a moment to answer your questions, because I think the document would answer some questions for you. The email for contact to booking training, whatever, is that one, Catherine@cact.co.uk. So you may be the decision maker. You might want to discuss with your team about what we've talked about today. You will need to book the training days. It's on your information pack. If you haven't got an information pack yesterday, please just use this email and Catherine will send it to you. We do have limited availability because people are very, very keen on this new process, and a lot of people are wanting to have it. So we will see as many people as we can. If you can buddy up with another agency, or if you're a local authority, you want to budget up with another local authority, that's completely fine. We're happy to combine that kind of training for you. And once you've had the training days, we issue you a license, which says that you are licensed to use the Therapeutic Fostering Assessment for a period of 2 years. The reason that we license it is just in case maybe an agency is sold to another agency and that agency is not using a therapeutic model, and so we like to review that every couple of years. That's all really. And then you will be allocated a level 2 assessor. So there'll be somebody who liaises with your agency or local authority who's the assessor for your applicant. So you won't be speaking to loads of different people. There'll be one person who's pushing them all through and liaising with you about their progress. Okay, so that's where we are on the TFA. So if you'd like to put any questions in the chat box, or if you want to wave, or can people unmute themselves, Danielle? They can, okay. So if you want to unmute yourself to ask something, that's fine too. So just wait a second, otherwise I will open the, yes, a couple of people have unmuted. So yeah, and I've got the document ready to share with you, which I think we'll need for answering some questions. So who would like to ask a question? Wave if you want to ask a question. Right, Shelley.
Hi folks, I think this sounds absolutely fantastic and absolutely timely. I've been doing FormS for many years with the BAF format that we're using. I work for a national fostering agency and actually just found out that across the country we're all using various different ones of these, which ain't no good. So I guess my question is, what will this look like in Scotland? When will this be rolled out in Scotland?
Well, it will be within the next 3 months, because the only thing that we have left to do for the Scottish one is just making sure that that fits in. Sarah maps it into the equivalent of the TSD. So we want to make sure that you're not having to do the TSD equivalent on top of everything else. So we're mapping it into that and looking particularly at the Scottish regulations. So Shelley, somebody like you would be ideal. We can send you what we've done and the checklist, and you can say, yeah, that does the job. So it's only minor tweaking. The whole body of the TFA is going to stay the same, but the checklist would look different, and the mapping to the other equivalent of TSD would look different. But other than that, it would be the same.
Fantastic. Well, I think we have a kind of assessment team nationally that I think I'd like to take this forward, with. So thank you.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Thank you. Anybody else like a question? Anybody waving? Hamish?
Sorry.
I'm sure I've read that wrong. So it says Hamish, but it's not Hamish.
No, that's my son. He's going back to uni and I've just given my laptop to him, but I borrowed it for this meeting. Sorry, yeah, I've got a few questions. Following up from the discussion you were having, my understanding was that while the care is completing their booklet, the TDS booklet, they needed the evidence from experience. So if they are doing it during the assessment, I know we said it's only a majority, not all of it.
Yeah.
How does that fit in?
Sarah can answer that.
Yes, so they do most of it through the units, and there's 6 units. So the first 3, unit 1, 2, and 6, they need to do before they go to panel. The rest can be done over 6 months, so within the first 6 months. And also we've mapped it into the daily logs as well. So if for the supervising social worker, they can see that they've evidenced it through their daily logs, that's on there. They may need to, you will get it in a Word document, so you can just put in specific examples if you want to. Also, it's tailored to the agency's own training. So if they've had anything else and they've maybe brought their experiences into that training, you can put your own evidence in there. So we've done the basis, but you can expand and be very specific to tailor towards that applicant's or foster parents' requirements.
Yeah, so because but you're quite right, the TSD is experience-based, evidence-based. I mean, we can't, there are certain parts of the level 2 that you could complete it, but it wouldn't be finished mapping to the TSD until they'd had a child, so yeah.
Sorry, do you want me to finish my questions? Or because I see some other people who got questions. I also want to know about the assessor's qualifications, because I realize obviously this is quite, specialized area. What would be assessor's qualification? Is there a requirement?
Well, it's interesting because different, I know that there are different regulations for the different countries, and I know that you can have somebody do an assessment who is not a qualified social worker, provided they are supervised by a qualified social worker in certain areas. We've had people do assessments who are not qualified social workers but are supervised but have a specific talent in, for example, psychotherapy, running therapeutic groups for social workers. However, the great thing is that the assessor's guide that I've written with it in mind of somebody who's assessing who has no clue. Now, obviously that's to be avoided. We don't really want brand new assessors with no knowledge of therapeutic parenting, and we would expect them to do some training with us, and we offer that training. So if you've got an assessor or a few assessors that you think, yeah, we want them to do the TFA, we would recommend that we come in and we do a training day. And in fact, you do have to have 1 day's training to be licensed. So you'd want to put your assessors on that, ideally. And then with the assessor's guide, they should be good to go. So your social workers are fine. Anyone who's got, you will know people in your agency who's got that special skill level. Maybe they're a children's support worker or something like that, or an empathic listener. Be any of those sorts of people, but you will have to look at the regs regarding the signing off and whether that needs to be qualified social, because in some countries I know that is the case. Just bear in mind.
Yeah, I was more thinking about the knowledge about working with children, traumatized children, and the therapeutic.
Yeah, well, you'll see in our training program, what we've done is we've got 2 levels. So we've said to agencies, if you think that you're a pretty good therapeutic agency and you've got some grounding in therapeutic parenting and you've looked at the A to Z and you're knowledgeable about that, you'd only need 1 day on the TFA and 1 day on the level 2. If you're starting lower down and you want to upskill your social workers, you need an extra day from us. And then we point them towards the reading that they need to read. I think the good thing is now we have lots of publications that we can, give people a quick to look at. And we have lots of training videos that people can just sit and look at with a cup of tea. So it's not like they've got to do loads and loads of stuff, but we can target them using our training pass where they can literally log on and look at the areas they need upskilling in, and they get CPD obviously for that as well. So.
My last question is about how inclusive it is, because it sounds like a lot of it is done online. I mean, it's great to use the modern media, because here we are sitting, we've been working with this for 2 years now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know that some of our carers or prospective applicants, they might not be, you know, able to use it to that extent. I mean, has that been an issue, or are the applicants usually quite well equipped?
Yeah, I mean, they don't have to, you know, I think that some applicants have really embraced it, and they've done their little voice messages and their videos, and they've loved it, because some of it is things like taking a photo of the house. I mean, most people can manage that, the assessor can manage that, but we've also had people taking their phone, the assessor, and recording a voice note and uploading a voice note of them talking onto it. So, you know, so it doesn't have to be, but, you know, what I would say is we all expect foster parents to be able to fill out daily logs, to report, to record things. So again, you know, there's opportunities here to help people to upskill perhaps their media knowledge and use during the assessment, but it doesn't rely on it. The social worker can absolutely sit there and talk to them like they would have done before, but we do want them to take a bit more of a lead role, and it does encourage it for that. Okay, so thank you. Did anybody else want to ask a question? I don't know, I've got everybody on my screen. Well, it says Adams Muir. If you want to unmute, Greg.
Yeah, sorry, it's Andrew.
Andrew, hi,
yeah.
Greg.
So my query was whether you've had any thoughts about developing this for kinship carers assessment. I know that's a very challenging area sometimes, but I think for us as an agency, I think trying to help those carers understand this therapeutic challenge is often very key.
Well, not only have we given it some thought, we've already written the level 2, or Sarah has written the level 2 qualification that goes alongside that, so the angle is slightly different. Obviously, we haven't got stuff about being a professional foster parent, that kind of thing. So yeah, we are kind of 75%. We've also looking, obviously, doing a therapeutic adoption assessment. My belief is that the assessment for adopters and foster parents needs to be different. Having adopted and fostered yourself is a different task. Your kinship carers, your special guardians, different. It's different. Different motivation, different expectations, different support. So they all need to have. So although the strands would be similar, they would come at from a different angle. Yes, so that is absolutely in the background.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I see lots of happy nods there, so that's good.
I've had a couple of questions, Sarah, through in the chat box.
Oh, good. Yes, I'll just that if you can.
We've had one regarding it. Would this be something that could be used with adoptive or prospective adopters?
Well, I would suggest there that you just wait 5 minutes for the the therapeutic adoption assessment, because although it will look very similar, there are key differences in the expectations and motivations section. And I believe personally that we will be putting a lot more in there around siblings and keeping children together. As an adopter of 5 myself, I think that is overlooked in the current assessment process, and not enough is so that is happening. It probably won't be until January, I would say, with the work we've got now coming out of this assessment.
Another question: are there opportunities to trial this for the local authorities and agencies?
Well, we've piloted it, so I mean, I would say that everybody that does it from now on, I think it's going to be ongoing, because we are going to always welcome feedback. So we are very happy for people to take on the training and do it, but we have had a lot of feedback. We've tweaked it already. We've taken on board the views of applicants, assessors, panel chairs, ADMs. We have done that, and we do feel that we've got a pretty comprehensive, concise process, but we are always open to feedback. And I think that's really important. What we will not be doing is bolt-ons. We will not make the mistake that's been made previously of hacking it about and putting in a bit that might cover that bit. We won't ever be putting in risk assessments on sheds. That's never going to happen with the TFA. So if somebody comes back and says, well, you know, this question you've got here on, you know, diversity, for example, if it was phrased this way, I think that'd be more helpful. Yes, absolutely. We might look at rephrasing stuff, but I think that would be helpful, but probably not full-scale trials unless you're looking at a lot of foster parents that you want to put through and you want to see how that all works together with the level 2. Anything else, Danielle?
I was just seeing if Richard wanted to say anything, then I could see he unmuted and it was his question.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, hi Sarah, thanks for today. Yeah, no, I don't know if I expressed my question properly, which was kind of like, so I work for Derbyshire, like local authority, and I suppose
I've done a lot of work with you.
Yeah, I know our carers speak really positive about you and your company. Yeah, I suppose, yeah, my the point I was coming from was that I just think from Derbyshire, from a local authority, the methods we've used are quite entrenched, you know, being open and honest about that. And I suppose one, for me to understand what like your assessment structure is and that, I suppose, so I can feel confident if I was having a discussion with managers, senior managers about us wanting to move to it. I don't know if it would be possible to have that leap of faith from one thing that we've used for a long time, yeah, to using a new thing, and like, is there opportunities for us to kind of, rather than like going all in, to trial some of the assessment, to see how it works, to then like build an argument if it's something we would move to like fully.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good idea to, you know, maybe have a group of people. So you might want to trial it with 5. That's what I was suggesting. You might, and within that 5, you might have 1 or 2 who are experienced. You might have 1 or 2 or 3 who are completely new. You might have within that, you know, different. So I think there's, when you've got a lot of foster parents coming through, and like you say, I know that I was using the current assessment process when I qualified as a social worker 30 years ago. That's a lot of decades of entrenched, you know, thinking. So yes, I think in that you would want some evidence. You would want, well, you know, this is what you want your own feedback. Of course you would. So, you know, we're very happy to look at, you would still need the training. You would still need to enrol people on the level 2 and make sure that all work together in a streamlined way. So I would recommend that you looked at, you know, using 3 to 5 foster parents and different assessors, maybe 2 or 3 different assessors, so you've got a wider feedback. Yeah, so that would be fine. Okay, any other questions from anyone?
One last one that I have in the chat box. The assessment sounds fantastic and much more streamlined. I know you say you have had great feedback from applicants and agencies, but have you received any feedback from OFSTED, i.e. post-inspection of an agency using the new assessment?
No, we haven't yet. We're thrilled and excited. We can't wait for the OFSTED to come and CIW because we've got one Welsh agency doing it. We're very excited for them to come back and do it because, of course, we can't send OFSTED the blank form and say, you know, with respect, they will not, as you know, they will not give us a view and say, oh, this is a great idea. I do believe, I might be a bit arrogant about this, I do believe I know more about therapeutic parenting and child trauma than the average Ofsted inspector. So the way that we want them to give us feedback is looking at the assessments that have been done. So because we couldn't do that with Ofsted, what we have done is the next best thing. So one of our ADMs is a former Ofsted inspector and works very, very closely with Ofsted about policy research and changing things. And they have been really, really positive. And if anyone could have found fault, he definitely could have done. So that's as close as we've got to it yet. I think because of all the COVID stuff, you know, we've got a lot of inspections that are old or out of time, and that's been, you know, that's just delayed things. I think otherwise we would have had one of the inspections already, and we'd be very happy to share the outcome of that. So because it is so positive what we're getting so far. I just saw one other question pop up. You mentioned disruption, family breakdown, I call it, was significantly reduced. What period was this based on? In other words, how long was the system used during that trial? So there's two strands to that. Now, the first thing is that in my own fostering agency, years ago, I was using something similar to this, not as sophisticated as this. I devised my own kind of assessment. So that was trialled over 7 years. And in that 7 years, out of 30 fostering families, we lost 2 in 7 years. So although it wasn't the TFA, the thinking behind it around support structures, minimising disruption, education around trauma and proper support was absolutely within all that. Within the families, we started trialling the TFA October last year. So our first assessments were starting to go through on the TFA in October. And since then, obviously, those people have come to panel and they've had children. And I'm just thinking across the 2 agencies, I'm not aware of any disruptions happening so far. Now, part of that is down to the fact that they did do the TFA. Part of it is down to the fact they are therapeutic agencies. They've got empathic listeners. They've got a very strong, robust support network, and everyone knows what they're talking about with regards to trauma. I'm just going to just share the TFA so that you can see what it looks like. I always think that's nice, so you can see it looks different. So you'll see that I literally just whiz through it. So you'll see that for a start, we've got a nice picture. We use a lot of pictures and photos and stuff like that. Everything the applicant fills in is green. All of the boxes expand, okay? And on the front page, you have recommendation of assessor, panel day, everything that you need. You've got a nice contents page that they can click through. They click on that and it takes them straight to the actual page. You have essential information that you would expect to see at the beginning. Green again, this table expands here. Previous relevant experience. So straight away, right at the beginning, everyone can see where they've worked, where they've been before, anything that arises, and your uncompleted application, etc. Then, crucially, we go into about our home. So again, it's talking to the applicant. How long have you lived in your home? And we ask them to do a photo. We have a picture of the home and anything else that's relevant. Sometimes we get nice pictures of farmland and surrounding areas. If the bedroom is not being used, they take a photo of the bedroom for the child. We don't do eco maps, but what we have here is a nice little diagram where the panel can look at straight away and see who is living in the house, okay, who is living there. And so we put in there where they are and their location. So we can move these boxes around. So for example, if someone's at university, we might move it so that it's over here and say they're away at university at the moment, and we fill it out. And we can obviously copy and paste those as much as we want. And it has pets there too. Expectations and motivations. We have our expectation and motivation to foster. And then they look at the Understanding Your Traumatised Child video and they discuss it with the assessor, which is 10 minutes long. We have the training incorporated. The blue boxes are for the anyone external to comment. So you might have comments in there from second opinion visit, from external trainers. Sarah or her assessors might put comments in there for you that copy and pasted in. And then this bit, which is absolutely crucial, this is visited again at the end of the training. So although it's presented to panel at the beginning, this happens, they come back at the end of the assessment. How do you now think the child you foster might differ from a securely attached birth child? This shows panel and the assessor how much they've learned, how much they've moved during the assessment, how realistic their expectations are. So, and then the assessor's emphasis, anything the assessor writes is in gold. So at the end, they can go straight back and look at all their assessment, all their little emphasis they've done. So I won't go through all of it, but it's just really to show you that there's, you know, the different colours, green, blue and gold. And at the end, we have our checklists. So we've colour coded that again. One in the regulations, ones that you really have to do, whatever, and ones that you don't have to do or might not be applicable are in blue. So your administrator visits with the assessor and they start filling that out from the very first get-go. So yeah, so on the addendums, we've got all of those at the end. I think the other thing to mention is that, you know, the chronologies, everybody, you know, almost wants to go away and have a party somewhere else when looking at the chronology because they are so dull. We've changed that so that you've got a full chronology as in section 6 at the end, but actually what we put right at the beginning in section 2, if I can find it, is what we call life highlights. So we've got a life highlights chronology. So here we've literally got what made you you. So it'll be things like someone died, someone got married, this significant event happened to me, when it happened, what the impact was. So that's interesting for panel to look at. That's interesting for placing social workers to look at because it gives them a really good, concise view of what happened when. Yes, okay, it's important for checks and references that we know that they left this flat and moved next door 6 months ago. We know that, but it's not interesting to read. So we record that information, but it's pushed back further in the assessment. Okay, so I will stop sharing that now. So we're going to wrap up now because we said it'd be an hour and we're 3 minutes over. And if you need to get more information or book us in for training, please, if you need to book us in for training, do it ASAP because we've got another of these information sessions. There's only me and Sarah that can do them at the moment. And we're very happy to do it by Zoom or come to you. We'd love to come face to face, especially if there's cake. That'd be great. We're looking forward to that, aren't we? Yeah, day out. So yeah, so it'd be lovely to meet some of you, and I'm really looking forward to getting this rolled out, getting some trials, and changing the face of fostering in the UK because that is well overdue, and keeping our children safe, which is wonderful. So, okay, great. Thank you very much, and see you all again.
Thank you.
Bye.